Maya used to believe loyalty was a language only she and Serena spoke fluently. They met in a crowded community college hallway, both carrying too many dreams. Serena laughed at Maya's nervous jokes, and something clicked like a promise. Over time, their friendship became a daily ritual, steady as morning light. They shared passwords, playlists, late-night calls, and the kind of secrets that sting. Maya defended Serena in rooms where Serena wasn't present to defend herself. Serena returned the affection with warm words and quick hugs that felt genuine. When Maya pictured the future, Serena stood there beside her without question. It wasn't just friendship anymore. It was a bond built from mutual rescue. And Maya trusted that bond the way people trust gravity, without thinking twice. When Maya got accepted into a competitive mentorship program downtown, she shook with joy. It wasn't fame, but it was a doorway, the kind that changes a person's timeline. She told Serena first, expecting celebration, expecting that proud best friend energy. Serena squealed, insisted they go out, insisted Maya deserved to be seen winning. They took photos under neon signs, drank cheap coffee, and planned Maya's next steps. Serena asked questions that sounded supportive, but landed with a quiet precision. How did you get noticed? Who emailed you? What did you write? What did you promise? Maya answered everything, because in her mind, sharing was the whole point of love. Serena listened like a student, nodding softly, storing every detail behind her smile. Maya mistook that focus for admiration, never imagining it was hunger learning her route. The first crack arrived disguised as confusion, a message that didn't make sense at first. The program coordinator emailed Maya about a revised application she never submitted. Attached was a document that looked like her voice, but sharper, more polished, more bold. Maya's stomach tightened as she recognized private stories she had only told Serena. The same childhood struggle, the same family burden, the same turning point line. Only now, those details were arranged like currency, used to buy attention and trust. Maya replied quickly, explaining there must be a mistake, that someone copied her work. The coordinator responded politely, but the tone carried distance, like a door half closing. Maya stared at the screen until the letters blurred, then read it again, slower. Something inside her went cold, not from certainty yet, but from a fear with a name. She called Serena, laughing at first, forcing lightness into her voice like a shield. Serena didn't pick up, then texted back with a casual, "In a meeting, what's up?" Maya typed a careful question, mentioned the email, asked if Serena knew anything. Minutes passed, then Serena replied with a single line that felt too clean to be real. "Maybe someone else heard you talk about it. You know how things spread sometimes." Maya reread that message and felt her hands start to tremble against her will. Serena didn't ask to see the email, didn't sound shocked, didn't offer to help. Instead, she shifted the blame into the air, like it belonged to no one at all. Maya tried to breathe, tried to assume the best, tried to keep the friendship intact. But the silence behind Serena's words sounded like a truth refusing to introduce itself. The following days moved differently, heavier, as if time itself had learned caution. Maya replayed every conversation she had ever trusted Serena with, searching for patterns. Moments that once felt warm now revealed sharp edges she hadn't noticed before. Compliments that subtly redirected attention, questions that quietly gathered leverage. She wondered how many times admiration had disguised itself as preparation. At night, her thoughts spiraled, refusing rest, stitching doubt into every memory. Sleep came in fragments, interrupted by the image of her words wearing another face. She felt foolish for not seeing it sooner, embarrassed by her own generosity. Trust, once effortless, now demanded proof she didn't know how to gather. And beneath the confusion, a deeper pain formed, the grief of misplaced faith. Maya tried to salvage clarity by confronting facts instead of emotions. She reviewed old messages, voice notes, shared drafts, anything that could ground her. There it was, unmistakable. Her phrasing mirrored almost word for word elsewhere. An online post from the mentorship page praised Serena's raw, authentic narrative. The comments applauded her courage, her honesty, her personal journey. Maya recognized every turning point as her own life reframed under a different name. Her chest tightened as realization replaced doubt with something far more brutal. This wasn't coincidence, misunderstanding, or careless repetition. It was intention, executed with patience and access only trust could provide. And the truth landed quietly, devastating in its simplicity and precision. She met Serena days later at their usual cafe, the one that knew their routine. Same table, same corner light, same barista who smiled without suspicion. Serena talked easily, updating Maya on new opportunities and exciting developments. Her voice carried confidence, polished and practiced, like someone rehearsed in success. Maya listened without interrupting, studying the calm behind Serena's expressions. When Maya finally mentioned the mentorship again, Serena's eyes flickered, just briefly. Not guilt, not fear, but irritation, like a plan being inconvenienced by timing. She denied nothing directly, instead reframing everything as ambition and necessity. "Opportunities are rare," she said, "and not everyone knows how to seize them." In that moment, Maya understood the betrayal wasn't accidental. It was justified internally. Leaving the cafe, Maya felt something break that could never be repaired again. Not the friendship, but the version of herself that believed closeness ensured protection. She walked home slower than usual, aware of her surroundings in a new way. Every step felt heavier, yet strangely clarifying, like grief sharpening perception. She realized Serena hadn't stolen a chance, she had stolen authorship. Maya's story, her pain, her growth, now existed publicly without her consent. The humiliation wasn't loud, but it was complete, stripping her of narrative control. She didn't cry that night, not from strength, but from emotional paralysis. Something vital had been taken, and nothing had replaced it yet. This was the moment pain stopped being shocking and started becoming permanent. Maya stopped explaining herself to people who had already chosen what to believe. When the mentorship announcement went public, Serena's name stood alone, celebrated. Messages flooded social media, praising courage, resilience, and an inspiring backstory. Maya watched quietly as fragments of her life earned someone else applause. Friends who once admired Maya now congratulated Serena without sensing the theft. No one asked questions, because the story sounded complete and emotionally convincing. Maya learned how easily truth bends when presentation feels confident and polished. Each congratulatory comment landed like a reminder of how invisible she had become. She wasn't erased aggressively, only gently moved out of the frame, and that quiet removal hurt more than open rejection ever could. Her daily routine unraveled without drama, but with relentless consistency. She missed deadlines, not from laziness, but from an absence of internal direction. The energy that once fueled her ambition dissolved into a constant background fatigue. Small tasks felt overwhelming. Large goals felt fictional and unreachable. She avoided places where success was discussed, afraid of hearing Serena's name. Even neutral conversations triggered comparison, reopening wounds without warning. Maya questioned her competence, her voice, her worthiness of being seen. The betrayal didn't just take an opportunity, it contaminated her self-perception. Confidence became conditional, fragile, dependent on external silence, and slowly, she began shrinking to avoid further loss. Serena, meanwhile, continued rising with practiced elegance and strategic charm. Interviews framed her as disciplined, authentic, and unexpectedly resilient. She spoke about hardship with the ease of someone retelling borrowed memories. Her words landed cleanly, shaped to resonate, free of visible hesitation. Maya watched one interview late at night, unable to look away. Every sentence sounded familiar. Every pause mirrored her own past confessions. The audience applauded vulnerability without knowing who had actually lived it. Maya felt something sour twist inside her, deeper than anger. It was the sensation of being harvested, reduced to raw material. And that realization pushed her further inward, away from visibility and risk. One evening, Maya received a message from Serena after weeks of distance. It wasn't an apology or even an explanation, just a polite update. Serena thanked her for early support and wished her success moving forward. The message read like a professional closure disguised as gratitude. Maya stared at it for a long time, weighing response against silence. She typed several replies, deleted them all, and put the phone down. Responding felt like participating in a narrative that no longer belonged to her. Silence, though painful, was the only space left that felt honest. That night, Maya accepted something she had been resisting since the beginning. This wasn't a misunderstanding to fix, it was a loss she had to survive. Maya's world narrowed quietly, not through collapse, but through careful avoidance. She stopped attending events where ambition was displayed like currency. Emails went unanswered longer than necessary, not from rebellion, but exhaustion. She told herself she needed rest, though rest never seemed to arrive. Every morning began with hesitation, every night ended with unresolved weight. Her reflection felt unfamiliar, like someone paused mid-transition without instruction. She wasn't broken in a visible way, which made asking for help feel unjustified. Pain without spectacle often goes unnoticed, even by the person carrying it. Maya learned how isolation can feel logical when trust has expired. And logic slowly replaced instinct as her primary defense mechanism. She questioned her own role repeatedly, replaying choices with surgical precision. Had she spoken too freely, trusted too easily, offered too much too soon? Self-blame crept in quietly, disguised as accountability and personal growth. It felt productive to analyze her mistakes instead of confronting the theft. That internal negotiation slowly redirected anger inward, where it caused less noise. Maya became both prosecutor and defendant in her private mental courtroom. Every memory was reviewed, every kindness reclassified as potential naivety. This internal trial never reached a verdict, only prolonged the sentence. The cost wasn't just emotional energy, but momentum she never recovered. By doubting herself, she unintentionally protected the person who betrayed her. Outside, Serena's success expanded into spaces Maya once imagined occupying. Panels, workshops, speaking invitations filled the months that followed. Serena's name circulated with confidence, increasingly detached from its origin. People quoted her words, shared her insights, framed her as an authority. Maya encountered those quotes online, stripped of context and ownership. Seeing them repeated by strangers triggered a quiet physical response. Her chest tightened, breath shortened, fingers curled without conscious command. This wasn't jealousy, it was displacement, the loss of rightful presence. Maya realized she wasn't angry at Serena's rise, but her own disappearance. And that awareness settled heavily, reshaping how she understood the damage. Eventually, even resentment began to lose its sharpness through overuse. Anger requires energy, and Maya's reserves were running dangerously low. She stopped fantasizing about confrontation, about exposure, about fairness. The idea of justice felt abstract, distant, almost naive at this stage. What remained was numbness, functional but deeply unmotivated. Days blended together without clear markers or emotional spikes. This emotional flattening felt safer than hope, which still carried risk. Maya told herself survival was enough, at least for now. But beneath that acceptance lived something unfinished, quietly gathering weight. The fall hadn't ended yet. It had simply slowed before impact. Maya noticed the shift one morning when anger failed to arrive as expected. She woke up anticipating bitterness, but instead felt a strange, quiet alertness. The pain was still present, but it no longer demanded constant narration. For the first time, she observed her emotions without immediately obeying them. That distance felt unfamiliar, almost unsettling, like standing outside her own thoughts. She realized how long she had been reacting instead of choosing her responses. Silence, once a sign of defeat, now offered room for deliberate recalibration. Maya didn't forgive, didn't forget, didn't rewrite the past into something gentler. She simply stopped feeding the wound with daily reenactments of betrayal. That restraint marked the beginning of internal authority returning to her life. She began restructuring her days with intention rather than urgency. Mornings were reserved for skill building, not distraction or emotional spirals. She revisited interests she had abandoned during the collapse, slowly and patiently. Learning felt different now, less performative, more grounded in personal clarity. Maya studied communication, narrative framing, and the ethics of influence. She recognized how stories shape perception long before facts are questioned. Understanding that mechanism reframed what Serena had done in a new light. This wasn't just theft, it was manipulation operating under emotional camouflage. Knowledge didn't erase the harm, but it replaced confusion with strategic awareness, and awareness became a stabilizing force she hadn't realized she was missing. Maya also stopped monitoring Serena's trajectory, a decision that freed mental space. Curiosity had kept her tethered to outcomes she could not control. By disengaging, she reclaimed hours previously consumed by comparison and resentment. Those hours became tools, invested into competence rather than surveillance. She documented her experiences privately, not to expose anyone, but to organize truth. Patterns emerged naturally when events were written without emotional distortion. Dates aligned, messages echoed, contradictions revealed themselves without force. Maya understood that clarity does not require confrontation to be valid. Sometimes truth strengthens best when left untouched, allowed to solidify quietly. This realization shifted her focus from reaction to preparation. By the end of that season, Maya felt internally different, though externally unchanged. There were no announcements, no visible victories, no public recognition yet. But her posture had shifted, her voice steadier, her thinking more deliberate. She no longer sought validation from people who benefited from her silence. The need to be believed had dissolved into a preference to be precise. Maya understood that timing mattered more than speed in restoring narrative control. What she was building now did not require immediate applause to be effective. This phase was not about reclaiming space, but redefining ownership of self. Transformation, she learned, rarely arrives loudly or dramatically. It begins quietly, when a person stops begging reality to be fair. Maya's preparation matured into something disciplined, no longer driven by emotion. She refined her skills with consistency, treating progress as a private commitment. Instead of chasing visibility, she focused on credibility that could stand alone. Her work became sharper, clearer, less eager to impress, and more difficult to dismiss. Each improvement rebuilt a layer of confidence that betrayal had quietly stripped away. She stopped explaining her intentions to people who were not invested in outcomes. This selective silence protected her energy and sharpened her judgment. Maya learned that restraint often communicates strength more effectively than confrontation. What once felt like withdrawal now felt like strategic positioning. She wasn't hiding anymore. She was choosing when to be seen. Opportunities began to surface slowly, without spectacle or announcement. A freelance project here, a collaboration there, built through recommendation, not hype. People responded to her work with respect rather than curiosity. They trusted her competence without needing a dramatic origin story. Maya noticed how different this felt from the attention Serena received. There was no pedestal, no inflated expectations, no pressure to perform vulnerability. The absence of spectacle created stability, something she had never prioritized before. She realized how dangerous rapid recognition can be when built on borrowed narratives. This quieter momentum allowed her to grow without distortion or performance fatigue. For the first time, success felt sustainable rather than fragile. As her confidence stabilized, Maya revisited the betrayal with clearer eyes. Not to reopen the wound, but to understand its mechanics fully. She saw how Serena's rise depended on maintaining a specific image. Any contradiction, even minor, would threaten the integrity of that image. Maya didn't need to expose Serena directly to disrupt the structure. Truth, when organized and patient, tends to surface through inconsistency. She began archiving information methodically: dates, statements, public claims. Nothing was exaggerated, nothing was manipulated, everything remained factual. This wasn't revenge fueled by rage, but preparation rooted in inevitability. Maya trusted that systems collapse when pressure meets misalignment. She also examined her own boundaries with uncomfortable honesty. Trust, she learned, is not a moral obligation, but a calculated exchange. She redefined loyalty as something earned repeatedly, not granted permanently. This reframing removed the shame she once carried for becoming cautious. Caution, she realized, was not bitterness, but wisdom informed by experience. Maya no longer feared being perceived as distant or guarded. Her priority shifted from being liked to being accurate and self-aligned. This internal recalibration completed the transformation that had quietly unfolded. She wasn't waiting for justice anymore. She was ready for it, and readiness changed everything about how she moved forward. The shift became visible when Serena's narrative began attracting closer attention. Success invites scrutiny, especially when built on carefully maintained perception. Questions emerged during interviews, subtle at first, then increasingly specific. Timelines were revisited, details cross-checked, statements compared against past claims. What once sounded authentic now felt rehearsed under repeated examination. Small inconsistencies surfaced, not dramatic enough to accuse, but enough to unsettle. Maya observed quietly as curiosity replaced admiration in public conversations. She didn't intervene, didn't clarify, didn't add commentary of her own. Truth, she had learned, loses power when forced and gains strength when witnessed. And now, the witnessing had begun without her involvement. A former collaborator of Serena's questioned a credit that never fully aligned. Another noticed how personal stories shifted slightly depending on the audience. None of these moments exploded. They accumulated like weight on fragile structure. The image Serena had built required constant maintenance to remain convincing. Under pressure, that maintenance began to show visible strain. Clarifications turned defensive. Explanations grew longer and less precise. Maya recognized the pattern immediately, not with satisfaction, but with certainty. This was the consequence of building authority on unverified emotional capital. Once doubt enters the system, it multiplies faster than reassurance can contain. And Serena's control over the narrative started slipping in public view. Opportunities that once arrived effortlessly now required justification and verification. Panels requested documentation, organizations asked follow-up questions, timelines mattered. Serena responded with confidence, but the rhythm felt forced, slightly misaligned. People sensed the effort behind the performance, even if they couldn't name it. Trust doesn't disappear instantly. It erodes through repeated friction. Maya watched as doors didn't close dramatically. They hesitated instead. That hesitation marked the beginning of consequence, subtle but irreversible. No confrontation occurred, no accusation was necessary to trigger this shift. The system simply adjusted to the presence of unresolved contradiction. And adjustment, once initiated, rarely reverses itself completely. Eventually, Serena reached out to Maya after months of silence. The message was polite, cautious, framed as reconnection rather than urgency. She asked how Maya had been, suggested coffee, referenced their shared past. Maya read the message slowly, aware of its timing and implications. This wasn't nostalgia. It was instinct seeking stability where pressure increased. Maya didn't respond immediately, not out of cruelty, but clarity. She understood that silence now communicated boundaries without hostility. For the first time, Serena needed Maya more than Maya needed answers. That inversion carried its own quiet justice, and Maya chose stillness, allowing consequence to continue its course. When Maya and Serena finally met again, it wasn't dramatic or emotionally charged. They chose a neutral place, quiet, unremarkable, free from shared memories. Serena arrived first, posture controlled, expression carefully composed. Maya noticed how effort now lived in every gesture Serena made. There was no warmth, only calculation trying to appear familiar. Small talk filled the opening minutes, polite and inefficient. Serena spoke about stress, pressure, and how visibility can become overwhelming. Maya listened without interruption, no longer tempted to decode every sentence. The imbalance was unmistakable, one seeking relief, the other grounded in certainty. For the first time, Maya felt no emotional obligation to participate. Serena eventually circled the truth without naming it directly. She spoke about misunderstandings, about blurred lines, about how stories evolve. There was an apology hidden somewhere inside a collection of explanations. Maya didn't challenge the language, didn't demand accountability, didn't correct details. She simply acknowledged the conversation with calm neutrality. That response unsettled Serena more than anger ever could. Without resistance, justification loses its function and collapses inward. Serena realized there would be no absolution offered in that space. Maya wasn't there to heal the past or restore balance. She was there to close a chapter that no longer required her presence. After that meeting, the distance became permanent and effortless. Serena's public role diminished gradually, not through scandal, but redirection. Invitation slowed, influence narrowed, attention shifted elsewhere without ceremony. Her image didn't collapse, it simply stopped expanding. Maya observed this from a distance, untouched by satisfaction or regret. Justice, she learned, doesn't always arrive with noise or humiliation. Sometimes it appears as proportion returning to distorted scales. What was borrowed without consent eventually loses its power to sustain growth. Narratives built on misalignment cannot evolve indefinitely. They reach a ceiling where truth, quietly, takes its place. Maya's life moved forward without reference to the betrayal that once defined it. Her work carried her voice clearly now, unfiltered and unborrowed. People responded to her presence with trust, grounded in consistency. She no longer needed recognition to validate the path she had chosen. The experience refined her, not hardened her, not diminished her capacity to connect. She trusted again, but selectively, with awareness instead of innocence. What she lost taught her precision, timing, and restraint. Pain had passed through her and left structure behind, not damage. The story ended without applause, without revenge scenes, without spectacle. It ended with ownership restored and silence finally feeling earned.